All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Hope you like that little tune, Black Parade by Beyonce. I thought it was fitting for tonight, since we have some really phenomenal guest panelists with us tonight. So I'm going to share with you just how this will go. Before I do so, though, again, welcome to the newly formed RISD Black Alumni Association event. And my name is Vincent Brathwaite. I am an 05 ID grad. I'm currently teaching on campus a course called UX and Racism, Designing a New Narrative. And that's it about me. You're not here for me. You're here for these amazing individuals that you see on screen before you. The way this will go is I'm going to be asking the panelists some questions. And if you have any questions as they're answering the questions, please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A. And we will get to them either during our session or definitely at the end. We will answer, or I will pose the questions that you have for the panelists to them for them to answer. All right. We only have about an hour with these folks. So without further ado, I want to get started. So the first person that I would like to introduce is Alison Croney Moses, 06 Furniture Design. She is an artist, craft person, educator, and art administrator, and mother. Her professional work weaves together her and passions. She focuses on empowering youth to use their knowledge, skills, and experience to make positive change in the world around them. Simultaneously, she nurtures her artistic practice, building sculptures that often incorporate wood bending processes. She is currently the program director at the Elliott School of Fine and Applied Arts. When time allows, she also teaches woodworking and visual arts, both at the Elliott School. She holds a preliminary license to teach visual art, grades 5 through 12. Previously, as an education director for Red Rabbit in New York City, she developed and led interactive cooking and gardening programs for teachers, parents, and children. As education and outreach coordinator for the Museum of Contemporary Art,
you don't have to say that all the time.
And managed art programs for all ages. She also worked as a woodshop assistant in Anderson Ranch Art Center in Snowmass Village, Colorado, and fabrication assistant for Situ Studio in New York City. She is currently in Boston, based with her husband and her 2 children. Everyone, please welcome Alison Croney Moses. Hey, Alison.
Hey, you just said it all.
Next,
introduce myself. I said you said it all. I didn't mean you to say all that, but thank you.
You're welcome. Why not? We got to brag about all of you. I mean, y'all are doing some crazy things, some crazy, amazing things. Next up is Jensin Okunishi. She is part of class 2010 in textiles. She is an American designer creating a bridge between color, emotion, and memory. Founded in Japan in 2019, Jensin Okunishi Studio is a contemporary rug studio formed by Jensin Okunishi. Celebrates colorful contemporary design and quality craftsmanship that offers an escape from daily routine or the ordinary. Each rug is entirely made by hand from Himalayan wool in Nepal. Okunishi earned her BFA degree in textile designs from RISD and also holds a Master's of Design degree from the University of Cincinnati School of Design, Arts, and Architecture. Her desire to hold businesses to a higher social and environmental standards was deepened while working with Eileen Fisher. During the time she worked with the Open Style Lab designing smart garments for the disability community, for whom oftentimes clothing and fashion are inaccessible. Everyone, please welcome Jensin. Hey, Jensin.
Hi.
All right.
Thank you very much, Vincent. Nice job.
Welcome. Last but not least, we have Dustin Bolton, class of 05 and 04. That's 05 was my class. 04 in FAB. Dustin's passion for the visual arts reflect in the variety found in his work. He grew up with a wide range of exposure to traditional media, craft work, and early exposure to digital arts. Dustin completed a BFA at Rhode Island School of Design and began his professional career as a staff animator for Cartoon Network. His work experience carried him through various challenging production environments and attracted clients representing global brands. In addition to his work as a contract artist, he develops and pitches original content for television and comics. His passion is rooted in storytelling and creating strong characters to capture the imagination of all viewers. Everyone, please welcome Dustin. All right. Wonderful. Now that you know who's here, let's jump into these questions. Now, this is for all of you, some of which was already noted in your bio that I'd like for all of you to answer. Where are you living currently and why did you move there? Jensin, you can take the first stab at this.
Sure. So I was born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio. So I went from Cincinnati to Rhode Island to New York, now to Osaka in Japan, Osaka City. The reason why I moved here doesn't exactly coordinate with my work. My husband and I decided to move to Japan last year. He kind of happened to be from Japan, and we were looking for a little bit of an easier lifestyle compared to New York. We're both pursuing our own businesses. We both have many other interests, and we just thought about the quality of life really, and what we would be able to do in the future in New York versus being in Japan. We thought about some other countries outside of the US, but Japan was really kind of the easiest in some ways transition for the both of us, being that he's a native to Japan, so, and Osaka as well.
Very nice. And it's very early in the morning where you are, so thank you.
Not so bad. It's like 9. That's normal time.
For artists, sometimes that could be a little early, right? Great. Next, go ahead, Alison.
Yeah, I'll just jump in and say similarly, it's like, you come from one place and you move around to many different places. I feel like I'm in this generation of moving, where I grew up in the South in North Carolina, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, went to RISD and then ended up going to Colorado for a bit, New York for a bit, and then I moved to Boston. And I said I would never follow a guy, but I was dating a guy that I knew from back in high school. And he went to MIT for grad school. And I was like, I'm not going to follow a guy. What? And then I followed him. Then he proposed. Then we got married and had 2 kids. But I feel like the question is, why do you stay? Right? Like, now what brought you to a place, but why do you stay? And I really feel like I found a home at the organization that I work at. I mean, I'm home with my family and things like that, but work is important. And so it's Elliott School of Fine and Applied Arts is a art and crafts center. And we do K through 12 education and adults. And I oversee all the partnership work. And so it's a way where I got to teach woodworking to middle school kids. I got to do arts administration stuff, which I like to create new programs and think about how best to make sure that art is in the hands of everyone. And so that's the reason why I'm staying so far. And so far I like it. I never thought I'd be a Bostonian. I don't think I am a Bostonian. So that's me.
I'm glad that you added that part in there about why you stayed. I think that's really important to share, because you're right. It's not so much how and why you moved, but what kept you there. So thank you for sharing that. Dustin.
Hey, Vince. Why I stayed in, or why I'm
Where are you?
Huh?
Where are you?
What? Oh, where am I? Oh, I'm in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah. And why did you move to where you are?
To work for Cartoon Network.
Yeah.
I think it was probably when I was junior year RISD animation program. I was really worried about, hey, I got to start paying off this degree. So I was really trying to figure out where I could go. Of course, in animation, it's always like Los Angeles. And at that time was definitely like New York was always an option. Los Angeles is definitely the film and television industry, really heavy, or even Northern California. I was really kind of weighing my options then. I was kind of looking at a lot of different potential kind of pursuits. And I just so happened to have in the FAV program, in the animation program, we had a regular guest speaker that would come every year, Linda Saminsky at that time, she was an executive at Cartoon Network. And found out that she was visiting from Atlanta, Georgia. I was kind of surprised because I didn't think anything was happening in the South at that time, especially around 2003. And I asked her, I said, do they do production in Atlanta? She's like, yeah, I got some, a little bit of production, television, mostly like Adult Swim, programming block, whatever. So I pretty much used her, not used her, but like she actually was really instrumental in linking me up with some producers here in Atlanta. And so I was able to, my junior year, started making contacts. And then by my senior year, I actually just said, when we have the winter session and then you have spring break. So spring break my senior year, I literally just flew to Atlanta and visited the studio. I called the producer, said, I'll be there next week. So I just showed up. And
I remember this. I remember this period of your life.
Yeah. I was like desperate to make, oh, thank you, Alison. Appreciate that. And so I was probably like, I don't know how anybody perceived me. I would just do stuff, and it ended up working out because I was able to build like a real connection. They could see I was a real person. And I just showed up and they didn't know what to do with me. I said, I'll do it. I'll do anything. And they said, okay, you want to do this animation test for a TV show? I was like, yeah, I'll do that. So like I stayed there for the week and just went to the studio and just animated this animation test. Now I want to try to keep this really short, but so when I graduated, there was no Cartoon Network job offer or anything like that, but I did get some interest from Nickelodeon in Los Angeles, and which I could detail why I did not do that. And I did get some interest. I was given a job offer for a studio in Boston, and I didn't really want to go to Boston.
Hey, Alison.
For
I
real.
was like, I don't know if that's going to work for me. I was happy to get the offer, and I could have started working a week after I graduated, but I was like, let me think about it. So lo and behold, I graduated and I'm back in Memphis, and my mom says I have to move out. You got like a month. And I get a job at Starbucks, and I get an apartment with my friend of mine from high school. And for about 9 months, I'm working at Starbucks in Memphis. And I don't know what I'm going to do. And I think it was like 2005 that I get a email from the producer back in Atlanta, and he says, hey, that show that you did the animation test for, it got greenlit. And I was like, for real? He's like, you want to work? I was like, yeah. And that was like on a Monday, and on Friday I was in Atlanta.
I remember.
Yeah. And I was so happy that I had a lifeline, because I was really kicking myself for not taking that job in Boston around that time. But that's what brought me here to Atlanta. And I worked for Cartoon Network for a few years, and I worked for some other smaller studios that feed into Cartoon Network. And then eventually I got around to doing just animation for like corporate stuff. But like Atlanta's been cool. Like there was like a little bit of a low period, but there's so much arts and kind of influence happening here that like now it's kind of like a cool place to be. And I was definitely here before that was the case. So yeah, that's why I'm here.
Nice.
I was gonna add, Vincent, that I'm staying in Japan because of the coronavirus. Just kidding. It's way more than that. Touch back to that question.
We'll get to that later in the session. But Dustin, you brought us up, or you talked about something that I'm going to segue into next, and this is going to be for you, Alison, and that is your RISD experience. And so, Alison, I'd love to hear from you, and again from the rest of the panelists. If you have an answer to this question, please feel free to jump in. But Alison, why did you decide to attend RISD?
Ooh, I feel like I don't think I have a common story. but maybe I do. So, I was the art kid. I was in public school until like 4th grade. Then my mom was like, "Ooh, you were acting a fool. I'm taking you out and I am finding a scholarship somewhere and putting your bottom in," you tell I have young kids, "putting your bottom in a private school where all you can do is focus on school and not act a fool." And so I did that, and I felt like it was a college prep school. Like for high school, it was like middle school and then a college prep school, and I had an art class, and I went deep into all my AP science classes and math classes, and then all of the like art that I could take. Same art teacher, just art in different forms, taking it. And then when it came to college, it was like, where are you going to go? And I was like, as far from North Carolina and my home as possible. And so I came up with a list of art schools. Like I had made this decision of, okay, is it science or is it art? And I was like, well, I don't want to work in a research lab if I want to do physics. I don't want to do that. Sounds like, now I'm sometimes like, maybe that sounds nice. But I'm like, okay, I'm going to go the art route. And so I made up my list, and I got a lot of pushback. The college counselor was like, what's your safety school? It needs to be, you have to have a safety school in North Carolina. I was like, I'm not staying in North Carolina. I will have a different safety school. I don't know. My safety school was like FIT or like Savannah. I don't know. I just picked a school. It's like, that's my safety school. And then I went to my art teacher and told her, I was like, what's the best school? The best art and design school in the country? RISD. Okay, I'm going to apply there. Okay. And then she was like, well, you don't. So I'm like embarrassed to even say it. She was like, well, you don't have good enough test scores to get in. And if you get in, you can't afford it. So I don't know if you should get your hopes up high. And I was like, F you. I like left the room. I didn't say that to her face because I just didn't have it in me. But I was so angry. And so anger is probably what pushed me. I applied to all the schools. We didn't have money. I didn't go visit any of the schools. I went to visit FIT because my sister was in New York at FIT. So I attended and visited. And then I applied to 5 schools. I don't even remember all of them. I applied to 5, sent my portfolio, images, did all the work. And then I remember crystal clear the day I got that acceptance. So why I attended, because they said it was the best art and design school in the country. And it was as far away as I had applied. And I showed up, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't tell this to many people. My mom, I didn't have a great relationship with my mom at the time. She's right not to take me. So for all those folks who are in the audience, and college is like this idea, she taught me that I could go anywhere and do whatever, but it was also a challenge to do anything. And I just say, like, if I wasn't pushed by that anger, and if I listened to that art teacher, I would have been in a very different place. So I showed up, and luckily I was used to working in white environments. I was used to being in school where I was the minority, like the one of 2 or 3 Black kids in a grade. So the racial dynamics was not new to me. It was different and hard, but I was excited to be away from home and doing whatever I wanted. That's what pushed me.
That's amazing. Yeah, that is a unique story. Anger pushed you, but I'm glad it did, because here you are today, being able to give back and share. Anyone else would like to jump in as to why you chose RISD? Jensin,
I love that story because I feel like mine is fairly similar. I was, at like a college prep school doing a lot of academics for forever, and art wasn't really presented to me as an option. But I was like, well, now I have a choice. So I applied to all art schools, 4 of them. I was like, I want to get out of Ohio, away from home, take me somewhere. So I got in to all of them, but I actually wound up getting the most amount of money from RISD. So that was why I chose RISD.
Exactly.
Yeah.
love it. Yes. Yeah.
I would say very similar. Like I was terrified of I actually had a good academic record in a public school, but I had a really good academic record. I went to art magnet school. I knew I wasn't going to do anything of any value at a traditional university. I was terrified. I was going to apply, but I was like, it's going to be a waste of time and money. And not that I didn't think I could get good grades or whatever. It's just like, I didn't have a passion for like, oh, I'll go to engineering track or go to law school. I didn't care. So my mom actually told me I could go any kind of school I wanted to. She's like, you're probably not going to do a traditional, typical education. So I was like, can I go to art school? And she was like, if you can afford it, yeah. And I was like, crap, I didn't know that. So that was like my summer of my summer before my senior year of high school, that conversation was had. Usually you should be applying before then. And I picked a few schools to apply to. 3 of them were art schools. One of them was a regular, I think university, was it some university in St. Louis or whatever. I don't remember. Applied, got in all 3. RISD, I did similar, Alison. Like my art teachers were way more supportive than what you experienced. I was thankful for that. We had a really good arts program. They were really encouraging about me or any of their students getting into RISD. Some have gotten in before. I actually had, when I came in as a freshman, there was a senior at my school from my high school that was already at RISD. He was a senior in fashion department. So it was not foreign, in terms of the possibility of going. Super encouraging. We did have reps from RISD that came to visit our school. And so I applied, and it ended up being that RISD was the one that actually was the best option. And in terms of the financial package I could secure, it actually was something that I could do. It's really interesting because the perception of good luck getting in, my mom has a lot of stories of her associates saying that about me, even to the point where one said, well, they don't offer minorities scholarships at RISD.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And she said, oh, yeah, I know that. He didn't get one. And nor does he need it. My mom was like quick on the clap back,
Oh, yeah. Oh,
she
yeah.
is. Yeah, she's good. I don't care, it's whatever. But yeah, it was a goal. It wasn't something I was anticipating that I'd do, but I was thankful that there were people that were kind of like guidance and authority figures that actually were encouraging, as opposed to, what you can get. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. This next question, Jensin, I'd love for you to take it. Speaking of RISD, what was one of your most memorable moments during your time at RISD?
Fun. There were a lot of really great times with friends and stuff, but I think freshman year was kind of like, the biggest shock, especially coming from this mostly academic environment, where I was now doing art 8 hours a day, every day. Well, more than 8 hours, I was just class time. But, I think it was freshman year drawing class. I think it was the first half of the year. I guess that's first semester. And I had one of those like infamous teachers, and I was staying up every night before his class was an all-nighter. No matter how much I tried, I was doing all-nighters every night. Luckily, I had company, which was great. But I think probably by the middle of that class or something, I wasn't, my all-nighters weren't producing anything great. And the dean of students kind of pulled me into her office, and she said, you're not doing too well. And I think you're a perfectionist. And I was just kind of like, like, I'm here getting my talk from authority. And then she just said, stop it. I was like, what? She's like, stop it. And I was like, okay. She's like, you can't be a perfectionist. It's not going to work ever. You have to stop it. And so she was, really telling me, I didn't fully absorb it at the time, but, giving me permission to fail and telling me that, failing is part of learning. So that was probably one of the most memorable things. I mean, I wish it would have like hit me, right then and there. And I changed my behavior, after that meeting. Luckily I did do well enough in that class. I'm always like to say at that last critique, my teacher said my drawing was a miracle, but I arrived to the second half of the crit, like 45 minutes late. So he demoted me by like a half a letter grade in my final class grade. So, and he told me that was why. But it was a good learning year.
Got it. I'm looking at the time and I want to kind of balance that because I want to get through. I have a couple more questions that I want you all to each answer. So with that being said, I'm actually going to ask another question. I'm going to switch gears and ask another question, still around your time at RISD. But this question is specifically for you, Dustin. And this question is, what did it mean to be Black at RISD?
Being the only one. like it means a lot of different things. I think it's interesting because everybody that's Black is completely different, right? And so for my own personal experience, I tried really hard. Like as soon as I got there, everybody was Black. I was like, "Hey, my name's Dustin from Memphis. What's up?" Because I was familiar with what it was like to be in an environment where it's like predominantly white and you're isolated from other people that look like you, right? It can be a really kind of like emotionally trying environment. And I did not want to go to this institution and find myself isolated. I didn't have to be your best friend, but I just needed to at least know you and be not that awkward, like, I'm sitting in this group with all these people that don't look like me, and I see you sitting in your group with all those people that don't look like you, and we're just like, trying to. I've been in that situation before, and it actually doesn't. It can actually create a scenario where you don't, you have to have that ability. You don't have to be best friends. That's a thing. You don't, but you should be communal. It actually helps to be communal. It helps when you can kind of reach out to other people or kind of like say, "Hey, did you notice this?" Like, yeah, somebody can confirm that something's on some BS, and you at least know, hey, at least I know I'm not crazy because the other person that knows what's up. And I think that can help, just emotionally kind of go through those environments like that, because you're going to have to kind of carry that skill set. So I think to some degree, that's kind of like what it is to be Black, is that you have to form your own sort of, I guess, network by which you can rely on certain people that can see things from a similar perspective of you as you, in order to navigate things that can be somewhat cause you to question yourself. There were scenarios several times throughout like my education there where it was like definitely a racial thing, whether it be a comment made in a classroom or, hey, I remember one time, I guess people were getting robbed on what's the main street? Is it Thayer Street or what's that street? Not Thayer Street, the other one with the cobblestones that's closer to RISD.
North Main?
No, not North Main. You go all
Benefit. Someone says Benefit. Is it Benefit?
Oh, he just froze.
Just froze. No.
He'll come back.
He'll come back.
While he's frozen, can I add to that?
Yes, please do.
Dustin, I don't mean to cut you off, but you were literally frozen. Okay. Just to say that I feel like what I think about when I think about like what does it mean to be Black at RISD, or what did it feel like, it's just very different than how I feel being Black in other spaces, because I'm older, I'm more experienced. And I feel like looking back at myself then, right, and like telling myself stuff, right, like what would I tell myself, which you're probably gonna ask that at some point, I don't remember. But it's this thing of like, I wish I could tell myself that it's okay who you are, however you feel, being like you were in the black skin. Like it doesn't matter. You're in it. That's who you are. So it doesn't really matter. Like don't compare yourself to other students, and like be authentic to who you are and build those relationships. And I love what Dustin's saying about that community. Like you don't have to be best friends, because he did create community. I remember being like the young Black coming in, and right. And it was like Dustin had created community. And so like I got to benefit from that. But I also remember spending a lot of time comparing myself, because like I grew up in white environments. I was comfortable for me. And it was no longer as comfortable to be around people who look like me, because that was not the majority of my time spent in those spaces. And I spent a lot of time comparing myself. And then I just recognized that our identity, how we see ourselves, changes like every year, every moment. And today it's very different. Like I spend a lot of energy building that community he's talking about with moms of color and Black moms. And like that's my space that now I can create and help to cultivate, and hope that it's providing some community for other people. But that has taken me years of like figuring out more of who I am and being comfortable with that. And I just recognize that college is a space that you figure that out. Like that's your job. And I love that idea of like create community so you're connected and you know you're part of it, but don't compare yourself and don't judge other people that have the same color skin as you, or other skin really. But you know what I mean? Like, because that's a lot of weight. Like you don't know their experience. And so it's like, we're just trying to figure it out and learn. That's all.
I could add to that and say, definitely community is so important. And now being older, just having community and other people that maybe you're not like besties, but you're having similar experiences without knowing it. Having someone to talk to that about can be so helpful, because A, I don't feel like I'm crazy. It's not just me. And B, sometimes they can offer, some support, advice, maybe even a solution. Like that story I just told, a teacher demoting me because I was late for a crit, because I had stayed up for 2 straight days. But I had another friend, a white friend, she was told she was given an extension because she seemed really passionate. So, at the time, I didn't think anything of it. I was, too busy, doing work, trying to, figure things out. But, having, a community to just tell stories to, they can help you uncover some things and realize things.
Yeah, that's great. And actually, this is a fantastic segue. Hopefully we'll get Dustin back. I think it was some technical connection issues, and we'll hopefully get him back on so he can continue to share his wisdom. This question is along the lines of something that both Jensin and Alison, you both brought up as it relates to your time at RISD. And so for Alison, I'd love for you to take the first lead on this. And that is, the question is, have you ever had an experience while at RISD that made you comfortable because of your race?
That's just it's an interesting question. I would say that I don't know always if it was because of my race, right? Like I look back, I switched from graphic design to furniture design after the first, the sophomore year. I hated my professor. I don't even know his name. I don't know. I blocked it out. I hated my professor. I hated it not because like I hated the person. I just cried in every crit. He threatened that I was going to fail all the time, and I had been staying up every night to do the work. I was bad at it. Like I was not good at it. And it's hard. Like, so not many things I can say I was just bad at. I was pretty bad. But I also felt like there was a reason I was having such a bad experience. Like looking back, I'm just like, what was it? Because that was not normal. And that's what made me switch departments. And then so I don't have a specific thing. I just say that what I do notice when I was in furniture, because now I was like in furniture department, and I was doing something that I really found joy in, and I felt like I was good at, like, and could get better, like I could learn, and I was getting and good at this process of learning. But what I talk about when it comes to like race and other things like in the college environment is not that there was a specific moment or a thing that happened, and I'm sure there were, and I'm just like, whatever, that doesn't matter. But what I do notice looking back is that professors paid casual attention to some students more so than others. And that casual attention is what tells you you are good, what you are doing is worthwhile, and you should continue doing that. And that casual lack of attention makes you question every single thing that you do. So I could go through, you like, they do the instructions, you got to like learn a tool or whatever it is. And then you just put your name on the board to get the like desk crit. And sometimes they're required and sometimes they're not required. Well, like, I'm not going to put my name on the board. I'm just going to keep working because I don't want to waste an hour talking to you, right? Like, that's my mentality. So I'm just like going to work. But other people wouldn't put their name on the board, but they would get the casual stop by. Let me check in. And it wasn't like, oh, I'm checking in because I'm concerned. It was like, I'm going to chum it up. Yeah. Like, we chatting about this thing. That's cool. Oftentimes it was white young men that looked like the white older professors. And it just became this like casual way of telling someone that what you are doing is valuable and the other thing is not as much. And that I remember, like, that I feel more than, and I feel it today in times as like a Black woman, Black, small, young looking woman in a wood shop. Like that happens all the time.
Uh-oh.
Hey, Alison, I have a question. That my internet has been janky today anyway, but sorry about that, everybody. But I do. Oh, what did you say, Vince?
We're glad you're back.
Hey, yeah, thanks to my cell phone. So what you're saying, I've kind of felt like I wonder, like, because I got advice, like, and I don't mean to interrupt your flow, Vincent, but it just made me think about something. Because I got advice after I was, out of undergrad or whatever, right? And the advice tended to lean towards be more assertive, right? And I wonder if I heard that right before I started school, like, advocate for yourself and be more assertive and do not back down. I wonder if I heard that, if not so much at RISD, but more so kind of going into professional life, if that would have, given me like that extra little nudge. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if we're ever told to do that. I don't know.
So I feel like I'm a pretty assertive person.
Yeah.
And I think that part of that is because I went to an all girls high school. So I didn't have you guys to like be up in my business. It was just like all us ladies and it was all girls, straight up all girls. And that environment, they promote that environment in order to teach young girls to be more assertive. Like, that's one of the things they talk about. So I feel like in general, like I'm assertive. I think college environment is set up with, there's a pretty intense hierarchy, right? Like, professors are you like bow down to them in many situations. It's like their word is gold. And it's until you get to like junior year, senior year, it's like you start to see the scales tip in more of a dialogue and a conversation and a back and forth. And yes, I think that, yes, we need to be more assertive, but you are walking a very fine line, because when I have been assertive, like, you hear my assertiveness right now, yeah. People are like, that assertiveness sounds intense. It sounds angry. It sounds like, are you overreacting? And like, I know everybody talks about that, but I have learned to navigate professional and personal relationships in a way that is gentle and is a way that like gets what I want. Now, like, that's what I've had to learn how to do. And then to be honest, if a professor or anybody in authority is like a supervisor or what have you, supervisor, that could be not in this situation currently, but whatever, a person in authority, if they're talking to me and not agreeing, but I really believe in what I am doing, which happened at RISD often. Yeah. I just stopped asking. I was like, no, I'm not gonna be assertive anymore. I'm gonna do my work. You can grade me on what I produce, and that's it. Like, that's by the end of my senior year at RISD, it was like, I'm gonna produce what I produce. And if you treat me like an equal and give me feedback on what I'm doing in order to make it better, then I'm gonna engage. And if you're not gonna do that, I am sorry, but I am not gonna engage. And if I fail, I fail. Like that's where I was at. And I was like, I'm going to take what I'm going to take and I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the reason that, and that's a great response, because the reason why I asked that is because when I was kind of giving that advice, I'm like, none of us can get where we are unless we're assertive. You know what I mean? Like, we're not going to passively get something. And I thought that was interesting, kind of coming out of school. And that's what you're told, right? And I was wondering about that. And I was like, what? Like, I just wanted to know what your perspective was about that. Because I don't know.
It's interesting coming in, like, I guess, I don't know. I'm always surprised by sometimes how much stuff hasn't changed. But, I think professionally, I got the same advice. Like, you have to be very assertive. You have to push for that interview, push for the meeting. That's how I got my first internship. I literally was stalking this woman like crazy. And getting an internship in New York when you don't know anyone to have a place to be, you have no connections, you really have to pull from every direction. So assertiveness totally got me that. But I think in school there was, it's definitely this kind of casualness where some students were, always getting, lots of talkings to, a lot of attention. And then when it came to my work, I was just like, I did the best. I'm trying really hard. Like, I'm trying to absorb, what you're giving me. And this is what I'm putting out. So if you have something to say, yay. If not, I'm going to go, charting on. So it's a weird line to have to balance all the time. And then, at some point I feel like I made a decision. Like, I had to make a decision because I was like, I'm not going to keep on worrying about what everyone else is thinking about me and my work all the time.
That's real. Speaking about work, so this next question to kind of get us into where you all are currently. This question is for you to take the lead on, Dustin, and that is, tell us about what you're working on right now and how has RISD prepared you for the work that you're doing? You're on mute, Dustin.
All right, there we go. Sorry about that. Thanks, Vince. What I do day to day is I'm a designer for AT&T. So like I'm a media designer. So I do a lot of animation for them professionally as kind of like an internal, like instructional designer. That's kind of like my boring day job. It requires a lot of After Effects animation. I wear a lot of hats. I pretty much do original animated content, at least 2 to 3 short films a month. Pretty much one person show right now, especially with COVID. There's a high demand for that work output. It's really cool. Like sometimes, and then with AT&T recently acquiring HBO, I get to do some stuff in that realm too. Because I originally started in entertainment, but I kind of went the more kind of corporate route. It's just more profitable. Simple as that. It's just numbers game. It's just way more profitable. And it actually allowed me to do a lot of things that I wanted to pursue professionally that was kind of more kind of like artistically and creatively driven. Just not having to worry about worry about like the fundamentals of life in terms of like just kind of like being an adult. Taking that stress off my back, it kind of frees you up to be a little bit more kind of free and creative. So like a few years back, I developed an original concept for a graphic novel, and I took a stab at potentially getting a publishing deal. And I did get an initial publishing offer, and I used that to leverage getting a 3-book publishing deal with a really great publishing house, Boom Studios, based out of Los Angeles. So I pretty much in the middle of drawing my first original graphic novel release called Kudzu, Heart of the Mountain. And it's in all ages. What do you say?
Fantastic, y'all. I'm gonna put that buzz.
Yeah. Yeah. It was kind of a journey because I didn't know, I kind of took a stab at it. I wrote something and I developed something that like was really kind of like that I wanted, it just kind of came from a pure place, something I would have wanted to have when I was a kid. And and I just took a chance. Like I didn't know how it would snowball. And then landing something where I got a 3-book deal was kind of like unheard of. Now, how did RISD prepare me for that? Pretty well, right? I do think having that degree behind me does lend towards the credentials to kind of where they could trust that I could deliver a project like that. Hey, I'm a brand new, artist writer, right? But the work that I produce speaks for itself, but then they also need to kind of say, hey, they're going to take a bet on somebody. Can they produce over the long haul? So I do think to a certain degree, having the degree helps a lot in that regard. But as far as constructively, what did it prepare me for? The thoughtfulness you have to go through behind your work and kind of like the ability to speak about your work prepares you for being able to be a little bit more than a hired hand, right? You could go to another art school that really teaches you how to like really animate but they don't teach you how to think, right? RISD kind of really shaped the artist's mind for me. And I relied on that, not at every aspect of my career, but definitively at crucial junctures in my career. How to develop a process to get certain results. Definitely a part of the structure of RISD, right? The other thing is that I just so happened my senior year, I took 2 semesters of graphic novel narrative just to have some additional credits in my senior year. There's a reason I had to do that, but in order to remain a full-time student, because I kind of like over-credited myself by the time I got to senior year. So I needed to take additional classes to remain full-time student so I wouldn't have to pay for partial-time student prices or whatever. And I had both of those semesters, I had 2 phenomenal professors for those classes, right? And I never knew that I would ever rely on that for anything professionally. I enjoyed it. I love comics. Comics was the reason I wanted to be in animation, right? And it just so happened that I relied on that. I don't think that's the common story for a lot of people that attend RISD. I don't. So with that being said, that's pretty amazing. I have definitely relied on the education in that sense.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I'd love to hear from either Jensin or Alison. What are you up to and how has RISD prepared you for what you're doing currently?
I'll jump in and just try to be quick. So I told you I work at Elliott School teaching, and I'm an artist administrator. And now with COVID, like I oversee, generally speaking, close to 2/3 of the programming at the Elliott School. And right now that's 100% because our in-house classes are not happening. So all partnership work is happening. And I just feel like I'm not going to go into the details of what I'm doing. I feel like the important part is like, how did RISD prepare me? And I say this all the time, like, yes, the art skills, woodworking for sure. I'm not practiced the way other woodworkers do because I have a full-time job and 2 kids, but I know I can step into the wood shop. In fact, I am going to be stepping into the new shop that I just started renting recently. So I'm going to get back to it. And I have no doubt I will continue to like build on that. But what it did that I feel like most people cannot say their college experience did, is that it like gave me the skills to think creatively to find solutions, right? It's like, I can analyze all the things that are in the room, all the challenges, whatever those things are. It's like they go into this little box and I like figure out, well, what about this and what about that, what about that? And then I can output, and I can do that quickly. Like as an art administrator, I'm like, all the staff that I oversee, this challenge and this, that, we need art kits for kids and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like one of the only people when I'm like, don't do that, let's do this, blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's see. Okay, it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. Like, okay. That type of process is amazing. And most people that I have interviewed, so many people, they cannot do that. So to think creatively, to find solutions, really consider all of as many as you can figure out and see in the moment of like all of the challenges that you're facing and try to output something. And like, that's why, like, when you think about like racial equity as part of the lens, as sustainability, like environmental sustainability, it's not hard for me to understand how those layers come into it. Or actually, it's not even layers, they're integral to the work that we do. When other people are like, well, that's separate. They're like, no, it's all one and the same. So like, that is the most important thing that I feel like RISD has taught me.
Nice. I would agree. Yes, Jensin.
Yeah, excuse me. I think I could, add in a similar way to what Alison was saying, that thinking creatively is really a big portion of it. Art and design skills, really great. You build those technical skills. So, building those give me the confidence to do what I'm doing now, which is, I started my own rug business and I'm designing rugs. I mean, right now it's very small. I design everything from graphics to my website, rugs, labels, everything. But I've gone a few routes in order to get here. I was in fashion working, doing technical sweater design. I was doing some programming and like smart textiles work, going down those roads. And I came back here because I like working with materials and colors and space and the environment, but they were all ways to figure out how I like to challenge my mind creatively thinking. And I guess I pursued my master's because I really wanted to learn how to connect that more with, the world every day around me. And RISD, I was kind of in this bubble. You're in your work bubble for one, but you're also in this RISD bubble. The whole school is kind of a bubble within Providence. So I was, I did some spring break trips where we were volunteering instead of going and partying or finding jobs. So I always tried to have some connection. And I think it's important for me to be, aware of the world around me when I'm creating and putting things out. So my master's was design thinking, systems design, learning how to incorporate that into my practice. But I think, I don't think like if I would have followed my liberal arts path, which my parents would have loved, there's a ton of liberal arts schools in Ohio, I would have even come close to winding up where I am now.
Nice. Thank you so much for sharing that. So I'm looking at the time and I realize we only have about 4 minutes left. And I'm also looking at the Q&A chat and I don't see any questions from you all, the audience who are listening. So apparently each one of the panelists are answering and do the questions that you might already have in your head, or although I do see one that just came up. So I'm going to take this time and propose one of the questions that came through the Q&A. So Kiana Kano, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Her question is, how can non-Black people of color artists at RISD be able to help bring awareness of the treatment towards Black peers and create a safer space for both parties in a majority white environment? Who would like to take that question? Go ahead, Dustin. You're on mute.
Sorry. I witnessed one time, I was in animation class and I saw a group discussion about a student's work that clearly had an offensive Asian stereotype in the work. And then I proceeded to witness the professor try to hold a discussion about the use of stereotypes in animation and whether or not it's appropriate. And then there were 2 young white male students that proceeded to have a discussion back, the white male student that made the offensive work and the other one that had a commentary. And because both of them were dating had Asian partners at the time, they felt they had the authority to speak on this subject. Whatever their opinions were, I would say for non-Black people of color students, have a standard by which you're willing to accept and entertain discussions from people that will talk in theory, but without practice, right? Meaning that if you don't have to be subject to the outcomes of certain perceptions, although you might be, sensitive or whatever, keep in mind that your opinion and your voice on that discussion can only go so far. Be aware of the place in which you're speaking. I thought that was inappropriate at the time. I thought it was inappropriate for the professor to even entertain it. And that sticks out in my mind. So, yeah.
Just to add to that, I feel like there's something about like the one thing that came up, or when I think back at like conversations about race and racism and stereotypes and all the conversations that happened, how many people kept their mouth shut, and like when I was the only person that talked about it. And that just made me mad and tired. And it's still like looking back when I think about race at RISD, that just kind of pisses me off. And so, this goes for everybody, white folks, non-Black people of color, and people of color. I mean, like Black folks that are people, you know what I mean. But to say something. Don't let stuff pass. Like that is the best, like to be able to say to somebody, the Black person in the room, in whatever your body language and words, to be able to say, I see you. Mm-hmm. To say to the, lesbian in the room, I see you. To say to the physically differently abled person in the room, I see you, by saying that I don't accept this other thing. That was so important to me, and it like so many times didn't happen, and it made me exhausted. And then it makes you start to feel like you're crazy when you're just like, I'm saying this is not okay. I'm saying this is not okay, and you're saying that it is okay. Everyone is saying that it's okay. You making a big deal out of it. It's just a joke. Da, 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 da. And I'm just like, that is the biggest thing that we can do, that everybody can do. It's like, and that goes for like, if you end up in those race classes at RISD, which I took all of them because I love the professor, and it was like the best class because it was about like talking about people like me. My kid is yelling at me in the other room. But to those classes were crickets, except for me. So, anyway.
Yeah, Jensin.
And I guess, sometimes it can be hard to know what to say or what to do when it's not about you, or it's not your history and you don't understand it. But I think sometimes just simply saying that it makes you uncomfortable, can open up that space, because, if it's something like blackface or a caricature, chances are the person of color that's, depicting isn't comfortable as well. So, for me, it makes it easier, instead of, when people see it and then they look over and then like, well, what are you going to do about it? It's like, well, I feel like all of us should be, hurt by this and, angered by this. And it shouldn't be just me, to have to get on my pedestal and say, this is why this is inappropriate and wrong and this and that and the other. So even if you don't understand the situation, but you feel that something is wrong, you feel discomfort, you can simply just start the conversation that way by saying, I don't understand clearly or everything, however you want to, but, I don't feel good about this. This makes me uncomfortable. Maybe that's a way to start.
And to remind, I know, Vincent, I'm like adding on to your thing, but to remind people that anti-Blackness in the United States, and I think internationally, like across the world, anti-Blackness is at the root of much of our issues, right? Like our race-based challenges. It's anti-Blackness. It's not just racism. And I've talked about this to my boss even, where it's like, oh, well, I'm hesitant to say, like, let's not forget about the other races that are not Black. And it's like, I'm not forgetting about them. In lifting up Black folks and dealing with the anti-Blackness that is plaguing our society, we uplift everyone. And I just keep saying it. I keep saying it. And at some point it is going to sink into somebody's mind.
There was one in a class I had, this this was a type of writing class. I don't remember exactly, but the student was from Thailand, and we were talking about slavery and, the history and everything after that. And he was outraged. He was like, "Why aren't you guys angry? Why aren't you guys this?" Like, da 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 da. And that was like the only person I'd ever heard in my life actually have a strong opinion about anti-Blackness who wasn't Black. Yes, you go. I'm here.
Well, I think what
So, hold on.
we can no, it's time.
Yeah, we can probably continue this conversation. I'm looking at the time, and I really want to, be respectful to everyone's time. I do want to get to this last question, which actually, Bendy, this is part of your question, and this is to each of the panelists under a minute. So kind of time yourself mentally. Under a minute to answer this last question before we head out for the evening. And the question is, what is one thing that you would say to your either freshman yourself at RISD or your senior yourself at RISD? Again, you choose which one, but what is one piece of advice that you would give to your freshman self or your senior self? And Dustin, you could go ahead and start it.
I would give my freshman year self a piece of advice. Do not take the first no as an answer in certain regards. And on top of that, to be forgiving and give yourself time to get to where you need to be. Mm. Don't worry about rushing so fast to certain things. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. Vincent.
I think I would give, advice to my freshman self. Maybe just slow down. It's, the 4 years it goes by really fast, but it's a great time in a way. You get to have all to yourself. It's really time to make your best efforts in whatever situation you're in to figure out as much as you can about yourself, what you like, what you don't like, who you like, and like who you like spending time with. All of those things. After I graduated, it was a mad rush for a job. I was like, I gotta pay off these loans. It was, bye-bye bubble. So really, I guess to slow down and, really try and focus on developing myself.
Thank you.
I would just say, my daughter is like screaming in the background, I think, for me. On that note, I will wrap it up quickly. So I think part of it is like, I worked a ton when I was in school because I was trying to pay my way and rack up more student debt. So I don't know how I would have slowed it down. But I wish I had more time to take advantage of other classes. Like, I took the classes that I could. And I think college experience is about many, many things, like including building your family of friends for the first time, really. So I think that there's so many things you're learning and doing while you're in this space and while you're at this particular age for most people. But I wish, what RISD has to offer that you don't get anywhere else is access to all of that knowledge. All the techniques that you never will have someone sit there and explain to you, and then have the time and the requirement, the deadline to actually practice sharpening, chisels, whatever it is. I will never have that experience again the same way that I did then. And I wish that I could find more time to take those things, even taking the language classes. If I had taken the Spanish language classes, I'd be fluent in Spanish, because those Spanish classes at Brown don't mess around. So I just wish that I was able to do those things. If you can figure out the balance for that. And I recognize that some college students can't because they are working 20 hours a week. So
I totally would like to add, I was totally busy working my 2 work-study jobs too, and I took some classes at Brown. But I think slow down really, as far as your mental state goes, You know, you have to be in a space to kind of take in all the things you're learning. You know, I was very concerned with comparing myself all the time to my peers and, you know, what was going on around me. So I think, you know, really focusing more on, you know, what it is that I can do and what it is that I want to get out of it, and saying, I want to make this like such and such and get this, you know, critique and get this and that and the other. You know, all of that is good and fine to an extent. But, you know, once you graduate from RISD, no one cares about your best critique. You know, it's in the wind. So, you know, it's really, I think it's a very personal journey you can try and take to get the most out of it.
Awesome. Well, we are beyond our time, but thank you to, first of all of you, the panelists, for giving more time than you agreed to. I thank you for your knowledge and your wisdom in sharing this evening with all of those who have attended. So claps and all the snaps to all of you all. I also want to thank those of you who are still here, who are listening. Thank you for taking the time out of your evening to listen to Jensin, Alison, and Dustin and what they had to share. So thank you to all of you. I also want to thank the founding members of the Black Alumni Association, Karen Harris, Tiffany Cooper, Ashton Agbomenu, Kristen Scaler, and a special thank you to Danielle Kachapis and her team at the Office of Alumni and Family Relations for helping to coordinate this event tonight and setting up the RISD Black Alumni Association. In the chat window is a link to join the alumni board and the page that is set up that has the RISD Black Alumni Association, so we can continue the conversation that started this evening. Also following this event, there will be an email coming your way to get feedback on tonight's discussion and input for future panel discussions. We are planning to have another panel discussion with other Black alumni from RISD talking about what they're up to in the spring of next year. So look forward for more details on that. Again, thank you all for your time. Please be safe and happy holidays.